Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pro Body Lifestyle Podcast. My name is Melissa Prochuk, and I'm here with my husband, Janos Prochuk. And today we are going to do the topic of how to progress in the gym.
Yeah, this is a huge question that we get from a lot of people because they have questions around, okay, well, how much weight should I be lifting? How do I know when I can progress and lift heavier with the weights? When to increase the weights? When to progress weights when you're injured? So if I have an injury, how heavy should I be lifting? And then how to adjust the sessions when you're feeling down, or just if you've woken up and you're just not feeling your best for that day, is it still worth training? Or how do I adjust my session based on how I'm feeling? Like, how heavy do I lift? So we're going to cover all of those questions in today's podcast, probably a lot more as well, because as you know, we love to go on our little side tangents.
Look, you're probably looking at the time of this episode and we're like, this is going to be a short episode, but you're like, this is a 45-minute episode, guys. But we're going to try and keep it nice, straight to the point today. And I think this episode is not just good for beginners. It's really good for people who have been training in the gym for quite a significant time, maybe years, and you still aren't seeing results. This is an episode where we want you to reflect on maybe you haven't been doing the right things, or if you're a beginner, this is where we think you should start to make sure that you don't waste years in the gym without getting results.
Yeah, because it's one thing to have a really good program to follow. So one mistake a lot of people make is that they're just guessing, or they're following random workouts in the gym, and they kind of go in with no plan, just figuring out, okay, what machine should I do? That one's free, let me do that one.
Yeah, random workouts get random results.
Exactly. So that's the first mistake we see. But today is, okay, assuming that you've already got a really good program, maybe you've got one of ours if you're coaching with us, the next step is like, okay, now you've got a great program, how do I get good results using this program? And that's what we're going to cover today, because a lot of people, they've got great training programs, or they might be, following a great program they've got from somewhere, but they're still just feeling like they're on a treadmill going nowhere. Like they feel like they've got no results, even though they've been training for a year, 2 years, 3 years sometimes.
Yeah.
And often it's because they don't know how to follow the program properly.
Yeah, I think the most demotivating thing I personally think is having a program but not being sure if it's the right program for you, and not sure if you put all this work in, is it actually going to get me the results that I actually need? And I know when I'm on a sales call with a new client to begin with, that's usually their fear, and that's usually why they haven't gone all in, because first of all, they're like, well, I go to the gym and I'm working hard, but I have no idea if I keep doing these exact movements, are these what's going to help me get the actual goals and results that I want? Not what my friend wants, but what I want. So I love that you brought that up. And we're not going to go too deep into that, because the first step really is making sure you have a great program that you are going to progress with over the next few months, weeks, whatever it is. So if you don't have a great program to begin with, let's start there. Make sure you have that, and then we're going to now teach you with a great program how to get great results, because we always tell our client, you could have the best nutrition plan, the best program in the world, but unless you do it properly and you progress every week, then you're not going to get great results.
Yeah. Now, I think the first mistake a lot of people make is that they don't understand the overarching principle of progressive overload, or they don't understand what that really means. And so the main thing to realize is that when you go into the gym, you can't just keep lifting weights that you can already lift, or you can't just keep doing exercises that you can already do, because if it doesn't challenge you,
it doesn't change you.
It's not going to change you. Exactly.
I was like, do you want me to finish that? Or
Yeah. No, so that's the main thing, is you got to realize that when you go to the gym, if you pick up a weight and you do a set of 10 and it was easy, and then you put down the weight, that set is not going to change you at all, because you didn't actually challenge the muscle. And so once you put that weight down, the signal that the muscle is going to talk to and talk to your brain about, it's going to say, hey, that was actually a really easy set. I can already do this. So if your muscle is already strong enough to lift up that weight and it's easy for it, then there's no reason for the muscle to change.
Yeah, great point.
So that's why progressive overload is a principle of continuously challenging your body in different ways, not always adding weight, but in different ways, always progressive overloading and challenging your body over time, so that when you do pick up a weight and you push yourself close to failure where you can no longer do, let's say if you're doing bicep curls, if you push yourself to failure where you can no longer do a bicep curl with whatever weight, it doesn't matter, then that's where the signal from your muscle to your brain is going to say, hey, that was really hard. I actually failed. I could barely do that set. So maybe I need to adapt so that I can build my muscle to be stronger or bigger so that I can do this in the future again.
Yeah, and let's be real, like no one wants to fail in life, but we're always telling people that the gym is the number one place you do want to fail. If you're not failing in the gym with the certain repetitions and sets that you're doing, then you aren't going to progress and grow and challenge that muscle, hence not changing at all. And I have this conversation a lot with new clients who want to start training first in their home, like training in their garage with a few dumbbells they've collected over the years. There is nothing wrong with that. We've got some great clients who are so consistent, getting great results in their home program. However, like you said, eventually the weights that you're lifting are going to get easy. Your muscles know how to lift that now. So it's not going to send that signal to your brain to go, oh, we can't lift this. We haven't got to that failing point. We don't need to grow that any stronger. So this is where you need to either, like we're going to talk about that now, how to progress, but you always need to be making sure that you are challenged and not doing the same things. Yes, you do the same movements, but if you're using the same weights or the same reps every week, nothing's going to change. So if you're watching this or listening to this right now and going, oh wow, like I've been training for quite a while and I feel like I look the exact same, then these next principles are going to really help you out.
Yeah, and a lot of people I think don't understand what lightweight is versus what heavyweight is, because what people don't realize is it's actually relative to how strong you are. So for me, if you're able to do 15 or 20 reps with an exercise, then that's considered lightweight. You're able to do 15, 20 reps or more.
Yeah,
it's
that's
light,
really good. Yeah.
right? So it doesn't matter how heavy that weight is. For you, that's a lightweight. But somebody else might be able to lift a lot heavier for that same 15 to 20 reps, but that's still lightweight for them because they can still do a lot of reps with it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can only do, for example, 5 push-ups, right? Or you're lifting a weight and you can only do 5 reps and you can't do, 10, 15 or 20 reps, then because you can only do 5 reps, that's telling you that that's a heavy weight for you because you can only do 5 reps. So whether that's push-ups for you at this stage, or whether that's maybe doing some squats, but with heavy enough weight that you can literally only do 5 reps. Like you're not just stopping at 5, but you cannot do more than 5. Then for you, that's a heavy weight.
Yeah.
And so over time, you'll be able to do more reps with the heavier weights, and they'll become lightweights because you get stronger. So your strength and the weight you're lifting is not based on a set number. So it's not like, oh, every time I lift 50 kilos, it's always heavy. Because for one person, 50 kilos, again, it might be easy for them because they can lift 100.
Yeah.
So 50 kilos for them is lightweight. Whereas for another person who's weaker, 50 kilos is like, whoa, that's like, I can barely even lift that. That's so heavy.
Yeah, my favorite thing is when a new client starts with us and, for example, they can only do body weight squats at that stage, or they can't even do a push-up, which is so fine to begin with. It's a very challenging exercise, but they kind of look like, I don't know, they're very down on themselves. They're a bit ashamed they can't do certain things. And I always say, remember this moment of how weak you feel now, because I can guarantee you in 6, 12, whatever amount of weeks that are coming, you are going to look back and be like, I can't believe I used to struggle with this particular weight, like a 1 kilo dumbbell, where now the weights that used to be so challenging for you are now your warm-up weights. And that is the best thing. That's such a good kind of reminder that your muscles are adapting over time. Sometimes you don't realize because you're so consistent with the gym. But if you look back and you're like, oh, wow, like I used to look back and I used to struggle with 3 kilo dumbbells for this exercise. And now I can pump 50 kilos. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And so that's really why sometimes you need to progress from doing home programs into going out and getting a gym membership, or a lot of our clients, they end up building more of a home gym and getting more equipment.
Love that.
So they can continue to challenge themselves. Because again, going back to that quote, if it doesn't challenge you, it's not going to change you. So at the start, if push-ups, if doing dumbbell bicep curls, if doing dumbbell squats is challenging for you, then great, you can progress with those weights. But eventually you're going to get to a point where you're able to do way too many reps of push-ups. Like for example, I can do over 100. But I don't want to sit there and do 100 push-ups anymore.
Who's got time to do, 100 squats, 100 body weight push-ups, all those kind of things, when really you can fail by adding some resistance?
Yeah. So it's like, okay, as you get stronger, you could do 100 bicep curls to make it a hard set, or you could just lift a little bit heavier weight and not have to lift 100.
Yeah. Do you know what I think is another issue as well? Especially I have a lot of female clients, is a lot of girls are either scared to push to that failure point and find what that challenging weight is, or it's a bit embarrassing. Like it's like they don't want to fail because, first of all, failing in the gym is quite hard if you don't have someone spotting you, or you just don't know how to get to that point. A lot of females underestimate what they can lift.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really excited for today's episode, to kind of inspire women to, or even men, to push that little bit harder, because the worst case scenario is you're not going to be able to lift it. It's not that big of a deal.
Well, let's go into a few ways to do progressive overload, because a lot of people, they know that, okay, adding weight over time will make something harder.
Yeah, the most basic way to do it.
But what are some ways that you can make exercises harder over time?
So as in not including increasing weights?
Well, yeah, that's one.
Well, that's number one. So everyone knows that, or most people know that, you know, we want to increase the amount of weight we're lifting per exercise each week if possible. Now, it changes depending on the exercise. Like, I only progress with a small isolation exercise like lateral raises, I'd say every few weeks, maybe months. But something like a squat, every week I want to be progressing as much as possible, because if I'm able to get the rep range for the first week and get all the reps that I need to get for a certain weight, then if I come in next week and do the exact same weight that I chose last week, my muscles have already completed that level. And that's what I tell my clients. Have the analogy in your mind of it's like completing levels, where if I've said, hey, I want you to get 3 sets of 10 reps, and you get all 3 sets of 10 reps, you have completed that level of that weight. Where next week, let's go to the next weight up. Maybe it's just 1 more kilo and go, okay, I'm now going to complete that level. But if you only get 10, 10, 8 reps that week, you haven't completed the level and you're going to repeat it next week.
Yeah. So that's increasing like weight, right? Another way to make an exercise harder or to continue progressing is, I guess, just to add more reps. That's simple, right?
Yeah.
So if you could do 10 reps on an exercise, maybe next week, let's try and do 12 reps. Mm-hmm. And then once you can do 12 and that's easy, you can do 15 reps.
Yeah.
And once 15 is easy, you can do 20 reps.
I just talked over you, sorry. I was going to say that it's a good thing for some of my clients struggle with the dumbbells in the gym. Sometimes they go from, instead of increasing from 1 kilo, they go from 12.5 to 15. And my clients are like, oh, that's such a big jump. I can't increase the weight there. Yeah. And that's where you can go, okay, instead of doing 10 reps of that weight this week, let's do 12 or 15 reps. And that's still progressive overload. Instead of increasing the weight, you've increased the amount of reps of the weight that you did last week. It's more volume.
Yeah. And so remember, progressive overload is how can I continue to make my workouts or exercises harder over time? And again, we're covering the different ways you can make them harder. So one way is adding weight. Another way is adding reps. What's another way we can make it harder?
We can increase our sets.
Yep.
So for example, if you're a coach or you've made a program that has 3 sets, if you get to the end of the 3rd set and you feel like, you know what, I'm going to go for a 4th set, you can definitely add that set in because that's more volume as well.
Yeah. So you're making it harder by just doing, instead of more in one row, like maybe you can still only do 10 reps. If you're doing 3 sets of 10, then you've done a total of 30 reps.
Yeah.
Whereas if you add a whole nother set now, then you're increasing by doing 40 reps over the entire lot of push-ups.
If you can increase and do like 10 sets of a certain exercise, this is when you really need to increase the weight. We shouldn't be doing that many sets.
Yes.
Increase the weight, you definitely can handle it if you can do a load of 40 or 50 reps per exercise. Do you agree?
100%. And I think if somebody's doing, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sets of an exercise, most likely you're not pushing hard enough, which is why you feel like you need to do that many.
Yeah.
Where for us, if you do each set properly and close to failure and you challenge yourself with each set, because for me, it doesn't count, or not just for me, but for your body, it doesn't count as a working set, meaning it stimulates muscle growth if it was easy.
Yes.
And so what makes a set easy is not how many reps you did or how much weight you lifted, but it's how close to failure did you get when you did that set. Mm-hmm. So if you go all out and you couldn't do another rep, then that's a 10 out of 10 effort that will be stimulating muscle growth. So it needs to be within an 8 out of 10 intensity level.
Yes.
Or what an 8 out of 10 intensity level means is you have 1 or 2 reps left in the tank. So if you could have done more than 2 more reps, so if you stopped at 10, but you could have done 15, that means I had 5 reps in the tank.
Yeah.
That's too easy. That's not going to stimulate muscle growth, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Whereas if I did 10 reps, but I can only actually do 1 or 2 more, like if I could only do 12, then that means that I had 2 left over in the tank, and that's an adequate intensity to build muscle.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, if your last set or your last rep looks like the first set or first rep, then you're not challenging yourself enough. And a lot of my clients, when they first begin with us, they get to the end of their sets, and I ask them, like I will message them and be like, could you have done 1 or 2 more sets or a few more reps than that? And if they say, yeah, I probably could have, that's when we know that they could have pushed that a little bit more. You don't want to get to the end of that exercise and be like, yep, ticked off, done, woohoo, and just move on to the next one really quickly. You kind of want to get to the end of it and be like, wow, like I really pushed myself to the max here. And that's why in your program, you really should be making sure that, you're not going back to back with the same muscle group, because you really should be making sure that each exercise you're pushing to the max. But if you completely push to failure for your glutes in the first exercise and you go straight into 2 more glute exercises after that, you're probably not going to be able to push as much in those exercises.
Yeah, you won't perform as well.
Do you know another thing that clients do, and I've had to teach a lot of my clients not to do this, is they waste tracking. Like, for example, if we say we want you to do 3 sets of an exercise, they waste 2 of those sets as like a warm-up set. Like you were saying before, it's like an easy set, and then their last one was the only set that was challenging. I only start logging my reps and my sets when I find that challenging weight that I want to get to. And the more you train over time, you don't have to find that weight anymore, because you just keep progressing every week. But if you're just starting out, those first few workouts you're doing, you're trying to seek and find where your capacity is with your muscles. So you might start with 10 kilos, 15, 20, 25 is where you feel challenging. Those are the 3 working sets you will log, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, that makes heaps of sense.
Perfect.
The other 2 ways to progress that we've written down at least.
Oh, I've got another 3.
There's another 3, okay. Well, one way that I like to progress is also just using better technique.
Yeah.
Or using a slower tempo.
Yeah,
so that's another 2,
great
right?
point.
So better technique means you're going to feel the muscles a little bit better. So that's where watching videos, or for us in our app, all of our exercises have workout videos of me or Mel showing you guys how to do each exercise properly. So using good technique is going to help you feel the muscles more and therefore challenge the muscles more.
Yeah.
And then likewise, slower tempo will increase the time under tension for your muscles.
Yes.
So even though maybe you did 10 reps, if it took you 1 second to do each of those reps, then that's 10 seconds of tempo, of tension. Whereas if you now slow it down so that each rep takes 2 or maybe even 3 seconds, well then now if you're doing the same 10 reps again, if you're doing it with a 2-second tempo now, so you're just lowering it a little bit slower, it's now going to be 20 seconds of tempo. So you just doubled the amount of tension on the muscles.
So true.
Or if you do 3-second lowering, again, you're progressing not by doing more reps, not by doing more weights, because maybe it's a lateral raise and you can't go heavier, but instead you're progressing by using more control with better technique. And that's another way to increase the difficulty of an exercise to continue challenging your muscle.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time when people are doing squats, for example, when they want to increase, we always want the range of motion to be the same. We don't want you to start doing quarter reps and be like, oh, yep, I hit my reps, I can increase the weight. No, the range of motion still needs to be deep. So you still need to do the full range of motion for the rep. And then we don't want it to be a bouncy rep. We want you to first, it's okay for it to be bouncy when you first increase the weight because it's challenging you, it's hard. But eventually that weight will get easier. And it's like, okay, can I make it more difficult? Rather than just adding another plate straight away, can I now start to perfect my technique now that I've added the weight? And slow down the tempo, so I lower with control, and maybe I go a little bit deeper with the squats to have more range of motion. So then I'm making it more difficult rather than just always adding weight or reps. I'm making each rep harder by doing the rep better and better over time with better technique, or better control and tempo, or just squeezing the muscle better.
Yeah, I love that point. So important, because we really should be focusing on proper technique over ego lifting. Like, all of us want to be increasing the weight. We're always like, okay, let's keep going. But we're always trying to make sure we remind our clients to make sure their technique's proper, and make sure you're actually feeling the correct muscle groups. There are particular parts of each movement in each exercise that you do where the muscles are challenged the most. If you're rushing through that, then you're not going to challenge the muscle as much as it can be. And that's why after weeks and weeks and weeks, even if you're lifting heavier and increasing every week, you may not be seeing the results that you want to see. So that's really important. I love that you brought up the point about slowing down the tempo and the movement to make sure you feel those correct muscles, but also that time under tension. Because I have a lot of clients that have come from history of group training, which we are not against group training. Group training is good for certain purposes, but for strength training, it is so important to learn to slow down the movement. I have to reteach these clients that it's not about quick 10 seconds to get as many reps as possible. That's not how we build muscle. That is really good for your cardiovascular health and everything like that. It's really good to get your heart rate up. It does challenge the muscle in a different way, but we really want to be making sure that we're slowing down the tempo, feeling the correct muscles to make sure that we can progress safely every single week.
Yeah, no, I love that. Was there any more that you had?
I was talking about rest periods.
Yes.
So
great.
a lot of clients, so I remember I'm also, I come from a group training background as well back in the day, and nothing wrong with it. But I remember when Janos made my first program for me, I was like, 90-second rest? oh my God, what, I can go do a load of washing in between that. Like there's way too much time. What a waste of time. What about 5 seconds? And over the years, I've realized that if you don't need that 60 to 90 second rest in between a very heavy lift, then you're not pushing hard enough. And a lot of my new clients will say to me, oh, Mel, I know you put 90 seconds, but I just did it within 30 seconds. If you can catch your breath and your muscles can recover that quickly after a really heavy set, I already know that you're not pushing hard enough. I get to the point now where if I do a hip thrust and I literally can't even sit on my glutes after, I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, I'm dying for longer than 90 seconds. That is how you know you're pushing to the max.
Yeah.
Now it depends on the exercise though. If I'm doing like a superset to really get my heart rate up, or I'm actually focusing on my cardiovascular health at the end of a workout, sure, go for that short rest break. And that is how you actually can progressive overload that little bit harder and go and challenge yourself a little bit more. But if you're really trying to lift heavy, you should be dying and craving that long rest break. Would you agree?
Yeah, and that just comes back to, again, that strength is relative. So some of those clients, they might think that they're lifting heavy because they're like, oh, but that's a heavy weight. But again, heavy is not linked to the weight you're lifting. It's how hard was it for your body. So if you're not pushing the set hard, and when we say hard, we mean how close were you to the point where you couldn't lift the weight physically, like you just couldn't do another bicep curl.
Yeah.
So not that you just stopped and did 10 reps, like, because if you do 10 reps and you don't push to failure, yeah, you can have like a 10-second rest and pick it up and do more bicep curls again.
Yeah.
But if you do bicep curls with a weight that you fail at 10 and you actually just physically, if I offered you $1 million and I'm like, hey Mel, $1 million if right now you do 5 more reps. If you truly went to failure at 10 reps, you wouldn't be able to do a single more rep.
Yeah.
Whether you wanted to or not, because you pushed your body that hard. And so if you feel like you can recover and go straight back into the exercise again within 60 seconds, it's most likely that you're not pushing hard enough, and that even though you might think you're lifting heavy, you might need to lift a little bit heavier just to challenge yourself for that rep range. So I think the next thing we should go into is how to practically put all of this together. And we have 2 progression schemes that we like to follow. Either when you're following a program, you'll probably see it written as, okay, I want you to do 3 sets of a single number. So it might be like 3 sets of 8 reps. That's called single progression, and we'll explain how that works. And then you see double progression, which is more, I would say, a little bit more common, where you might see it'll be 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps. So they're giving you a rep range rather than a single number to go for.
Yeah. See, I coach with, a lot of my clients will recognize the single progression where I would just program either like 3 sets of 8 reps, 3 sets of 15 reps, or like I'll even do a bit of a pyramid kind of style as well, where it's like 3 sets of 10, 8, 6 reps to really push, where Janos does a lot of the rep ranges as well, which is just as incredible and just as effective. I love personally coaching that way, where if I know a specific number I have to reach, that really helps me. Where that range is also really good, because as long as you get within that range, it does challenge you, and that's what you want to be aiming for. And a lot of people like that style as well.
Well, let's teach people how to increase these rep ranges, but also how to use them, because what people don't realize is that it's actually telling you for your body how heavy you should be lifting. So when people ask us, hey Mel, hey Janos, how heavy should I lift for this exercise? We don't know.
Yeah, you won't know until you start and you progress every single week. So that's why single progression is good to start with, I personally feel, because we're trying to find where you fail at 8 reps of that exercise, for example, 8 to 10 reps. And when you find that, that's when, like I said before, if it's 25 kilos, you start to feel challenged at. From 25 kilos now, you can start to progress every week to make sure, next week, I want to make sure that I can get 3 sets of 8 reps with 27.5 kilos. And if I can't get all that, I will stay at that 27.5 kilos.
Yeah. So just to clarify for everyone, single progression is when you're only progressing weight. Okay, so single progression means you're only progressing weight. It's a single progression scheme.
Yeah.
Double progression is you're progressing reps and weights, right? Which is why there's a rep range. So rep ranges, let's say if it's 10 to 15, you start at 10 and then you don't add weight yet until you get up to the top number, which is 15, the top number of the rep range.
But you want to be making sure you get to that bottom of the rep range as well.
Eventually. So once you add weight, then you go back to the bottom and you go back, all right, I've just gone 10 to 15. I've achieved 15 reps of lateral raise, let's say. So now I'm going to increase it by 1 kilo. But now because I increased the weight, I can no longer do 15 reps because it's heavier. So now I'm going to start back at 10 reps or maybe even 8 reps, right?
Yeah.
And then again, I'm not going to add weight again until I build my reps back up. So that's the double progression. Whereas single progression, so if we're using that example of doing 3 to 8 reps of a back squat, for example,
Yeah.
instead of adding reps and weights, it's a more simple progression scheme where, okay, I'm just going to use good technique, good form, all the way up and down with the squat, so full range of motion. And every time I feel like I can do more than 8 reps, if that's the target, I can then increase the weight next week.
Yeah.
And then if I fail, so let's say if I got 8, 8, 7, like I didn't get the last one, then that means that I'm not going to increase the weight yet. I'm going to wait until I can easily do the 8 reps.
Yeah.
So you're only aiming for one number, but you're increasing the weight whenever it feels easy or whenever you feel like you could do more reps.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Another thing that I like to do with the single progression is sometimes at the end of the set, if I've got 3 sets of 8 reps and I've gone really hard, if I want to just see and test if I can get the next weight up, I kind of sometimes just add a 4th set in just to see if I can progress that little bit more. I might only get 5, 6 reps, but it's a good way for me to go, oh yeah, next week I'm definitely ready for that next weight up.
Yeah, I do the exact same. So pretty much every set, the last set that I do, so for every exercise, the last set that I do, I always like to take it to failure or close to it to kind of test how many reps I can do.
Yes.
So for example, if you're aiming for 8 and then the last set, you're like, all right, let me see how much I've got. And you really go for it and you end up with like 12. You're like, okay, I was probably going a little bit easy. Next week I'll add, instead of 1 kilo, maybe I'll add a couple.
Yeah, I had a new client last week, and this is not bad at all, but I just noticed it. I programmed maybe 3 sets of 10 reps of an exercise, right? And I realized that she was doing 15 reps for all 3 sets. And I said, hey, like, it says 10 reps, remember? She's like, oh, okay, well, this was really challenging. I'm like, yeah, but if you're doing 15 reps of that particular weight, then we can really jump 1 or 2 kilos if we're aiming for only 10 reps for this exercise. And she's like, oh, okay, we're trying to find the 10 reps one. So yeah, it's really interesting sometimes. That was a really random point, but I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah. No, we love when people just pick their own reps. So again, if your program does say to do 8 and you're able to do 15, that's indicating that you're ready to increase the weight because you're able to do more than 8. Mm-hmm. So for her, you wouldn't want to just stop at 8 because then it's like, but she can do 15. So doing only 8 would be way too easy.
Yeah, which means you need to increase that
weight. So you
weight.
need to increase the weight so that 8 reps is hard.
Yeah, and like I said before, when you look at the single progression, it's really looking at completing levels. Yeah. And you don't go up into that next weight until you can get that rep, that like the 8 reps or the 10 reps that we've programmed for you. Like you don't move up until you can get that. Another way that I really challenge myself mentally to push and go to that next level with my weights, especially with single progression, is while I'm warming up, and I always tell my clients this, we have our own ProBody training app, so I can look ahead at my workout and see what I did last week for my reps and sets and everything like that. I actually already type in the weight that I want to lift for that exercise. For me personally, it's a mental thing when I go into that exercise. If I've gone, okay, this week we're going for the 15 kilo dumbbells, and every week I've been really struggling with it, but this is the day I'm going to get 8 reps. Even though I know I can backspace if I don't get 8 reps, because I've already typed it in. When I'm doing this certain exercise like a chest press, etc., whatever it is, it really makes me go, nah, I've written it down. I have to get 8 reps today. It really pushes me to go there. So if you're struggling to increase your weights or you forget, sometimes my clients are like, oh yeah, I forgot to increase because I was in a rush. So I just did the same weights as last week. Make it your habit while you're warming up on the bike, the treadmill, spend 5 minutes to go through your workout and go, okay, I'm going to log this. This is what I'm going to get today. And this is my goal. And it's visually there for you to see.
And it's a reminder that like when you go into the gym, the goal isn't to get in there and to just do the numbers that was there from last session. Mm-hmm. The goal is to challenge yourself. So if you normally do 8 reps, but for some reason you did 8 and you're like, oh, this feels easy, don't put the weight back. Keep repping out a few more reps and get 10, get 12, get 15 reps.
Yeah.
Put it back and then be like, all right, now I made that set hard, so I didn't just waste it as a warm-up set. I actually challenged myself by doing more reps with it. And the next set, I'm going to add more weight so that it's going to be heavier.
Yeah,
but just
point.
A reminder that you need to do your warm-up sets first, and they're not included. They're warming up. Then you can go into your hard sets and do your 3 or 4, however many sets you got programmed of challenging sets. Okay, so warm-up sets, because they're just warming up, they're not challenging you. They're not challenging the muscle. They're not going to stimulate growth. So one of the things a lot of people do wrong with their programs is they end up just doing warm-up sets and having one hard set at the end.
Yeah.
Where you're not getting the stimulus you need for muscle growth, where what you need to do instead is know what the weight is of your challenging set and then do 1 or 2 warm-up sets beforehand if you need it. I usually just tell my clients really simply, just go into the gym, warm up with around 50 to 70% of the weight you think you're going to use. And then after you've done that warm-up set, have a little rest and then go into your 3 or 4 hard sets.
But see, this is where I love that point. A lot of people go wrong, especially some of my clients, is they go, yeah, but Mel, it was a hard set when I first started doing it, but it's because they haven't warmed up. And the clients know that are watching this who I'm talking about here. Some of my clients don't warm up properly, which means they're going into that exercise stiff. There's no blood flow to the muscle. It's really hard. And they're thinking, oh, but it is a really challenging weight. But by the end, it's actually an easy weight for them because now they've got that blood flow to the muscle.
Yeah.
So if you actually do the 50 to 70% of your challenging weight as 1 or 2 warm-up sets beforehand, take a rest and then go into your working sets, then you will find the true weight that actually challenges you.
Yeah. And just remember that just because like your app tells you that you need to do 10 reps, if you've got more in you, like if you did do that first set and it was hard, then when you do the second set, once you feel like it's easy, just keep doing more reps till it's hard. Like don't put the weight back. So just every time you pick up a weight in the gym, just remind yourself that you're there to challenge that muscle, to challenge it to grow, to challenge it to change, right? If it doesn't challenge you, it's not going to change you.
Yeah.
So every set, even though you finished the set and you got the rep number that you were aiming for, your set's not done until it's challenging. Okay, so keep doing it until it's challenging.
Yes, if you haven't got some ugly faces or noises on your coming out, then you're probably not pushing yourself. Like I have this weird like if you're watching the video right now, I'm like, ooh, like it's really bad. But as soon as I make that face, I'm like, I've made it. I'm pushing to failure right now. But if you look really pleasant, you're able to speak to your friends through your sets, you're able to like go on Instagram and watch something as you're doing your exercise, you're probably not pushing hard enough. And I want you to know that you need to push in order to change.
Yeah. Now, double progression is a rep form that I like to use a lot, which is giving yourself a rep range. So that's like having 8 to 12 reps.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a minimum number, which is 8. And then you have a higher number, which is 12. Now, the goal is not just to pick a number that you like between those. That's where people go wrong with this type of training. The goal is always the top number of a rep range. So when it's telling you 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps, it means that you're aiming for 12. But what you want to do is the way you know what weights to select is you need a weight that causes you to fail, like you can't do another rep, within the rep range of 8 to 12. If you can get the top number or more than 12, then you're ready to increase the weight. If you can't get the bottom number with good technique, then you have to decrease the weight because you're outside of the rep range. So this is a great way that I like to auto-regulate for your workouts, because let's say if you had a very fatiguing day the day before, maybe you drank some alcohol, so you're a bit weaker, maybe you didn't have a great sleep, maybe you're a mum or a dad and you've got kids. So auto-regulation is showing up to the workout and doing the workout and making it challenging for how you showed up for that day. So if I'm really fatigued, I'm probably not going to be my strongest for that day. So when I do that first set, if I can only get 8 reps and the rep range is 8 to 12, then set 2, I might fall below the rep range. So that's where I know that for that day, I need to actually reduce the weight because I'm just a little bit of a weaker day.
Yeah.
So that rep range is telling me what weights I need to use regardless of the weight, but like how I'm feeling for that day. Whereas if I come into the gym and I'm feeling amazing and I do that first set and I'm able to get beyond the rep range, like if I get 12 in the first set, then I know, all right, you know what? This is a strong day. Obviously I can go a little bit heavier and I can increase the weight. So rep ranges, they make things simple because then you know, okay, I need to challenge myself within the rep range. It could be 8 to 12. Sometimes I might program a heavier rep range, so it might be 6 to 8. And when we give lower rep ranges or lower rep targets, like 5 reps or 6 to 8 reps or something like that, some clients are like, oh, you're being nice to me, but we're not actually being nice.
That's the worst.
Right? This is a great point for us to know that they don't actually understand how to follow rep ranges or to follow rep targets, because when we give a lower number, that means you need to lift heavier.
From the first rep, it should be challenging.
Right? So if it's a weight range of 6 to 8 reps, that's lower than 10 to 15. But it means that you now need to pick a weight that's heavier so that you challenge and you fail within 6 to 8 reps, right? If I give you a rep range of 15 to 20 reps, then you can't lift as heavy because I need you to fail within the range of 15 to 20 reps. So you know that you have picked the wrong weight if you can't get the bottom number, and you know you've picked the wrong weight, too light of a weight, if you can get more than the top number. Okay, so rep ranges or rep targets are literally telling you what weight you should be lifting, because we're already assuming that you're pushing hard, that you're pushing close to failure. So then you should know that if you're above the number or above the rep range, you need to increase the weight. And if you're below the rep range or the target, then you need to reduce the weight. And this is always, by the way, assuming that you're lifting with good technique and good range of motion. So again, if you can increase your squats and you're like, oh yes, I've hit the top of my rep range, I'm ready to increase, but you stopped going all the way down and you did little quarter squats, then I'm sorry, but you're not ready to increase, because you didn't actually hit the top of the rep range. Yes, you hit the top of the rep range number-wise, but you didn't do it with good quality of technique or good quality tempo.
Yeah.
Or likewise, if they're doing like a shoulder press, for example. I see this often where people, they start to use their legs and they start to go and just do a bit of a squat to push the weight up, and they're using momentum. Same thing. They're not actually hitting the top of the rep range with good form. They're now cheating with the form, and they're using other muscles to help out to hit the top of the rep range.
I love that you brought that up, because I tell a lot of my clients when they ask, oh Mel, like, you know, for example, let's say a shoulder press, I want them to get 10 reps. And if they get to the 7th rep and they're like, I can't get any more, log in your tracking, you've only been able to complete 7 reps with good quality and good technique. But then I would still complete the 10 reps by using my legs as assistance to get the last 3 reps, but I wouldn't log those last 3 reps. You want to make sure you get to 10 reps with good quality technique and form to really solidify that you have completed that level of that weight. I also like that you brought up the fact that, you know, some weeks you're not feeling as strong. This is where a lot of my clients get really, confused. And that's completely normal, where they one week were lifting within the rep range, getting such great weights. They're like, yep, next week it's going to be this PB. I'm so excited. But they come into the workout and they're like, why is my warm-up set so heavy? Like, this week's just not my week. And I can't speak for males, but I know for females, we go through a menstrual cycle every month. And depending on where you are in your cycle, depending on your sleep, what food you've eaten, your stress levels, whatever it is, can impact you in the gym without you realizing. So this is where on those weeks I go, okay, if I can't get the rep range or the reps, I will decrease my weights, but I take it as an advantage for those weeks. I go, okay, if last week I was lifting 30 kilos, but this week 30 is just, I can't even move it, then I go back down to, let's say, 25 kilos for that week, but I focus on making sure that my form and technique is great. And then I go, okay, my capacity is back down here. Let's start building back up from there again. I don't just go straight back up. I just go, okay, we're going to build from here now. My body's back down here. We're going to go back from here. And I just make sure that technique is on point.
Yeah. And this is the cool thing too with rep ranges and rep targets, is it's telling you how heavy you should lift for that day. So a lot of the time too, some of my clients, they go to a gym and they're used to kilograms, and now the gym's got pounds and they don't know what weight to select.
Yeah,
or worse than that, sometimes people use a lat pull down and it hasn't got the kilograms. It's just got random numbers, like
what
1
is
to 10.
That?
And you're like, well, I don't know.
They're like, Mel, what should I weigh? Track here. I'm like, I don't know.
It's like level 4. But each level might be 4 point something kilos.
I love the point you're about to say. Go for it.
So people will be like, oh, well, I don't know how to lift, how much weight I should be lifting, what setting I should put it on, anything like that. Where it's like, again, come back to the rep target, come back to the rep range. The only way you're going to know is by giving it a go and lifting it. So just pick one that you think you need to go for, take it to failure, and just see, did you get beyond the rep range? Because then it doesn't matter what the number is, it's too light. You're able to get higher than the rep range.
Love that.
Or whatever number you picked, if you can't get the bottom number, then you're falling below the bottom number or the rep range that you're aiming for. You need to increase the weight. So this goes back to like the Spartans and, you know, back in ancient Greece. They didn't have weight, maybe they did, but likely they were just lifting up boulders. They were just lifting up objects that they may not have known like what the weights
weight
were.
Of it. Yeah.
But they could still build muscle. They could still challenge themselves. They could still get stronger because they didn't just do 10 reps and put it down. They knew that, okay, to challenge myself, I need to push to failure so that my body adapts and changes. Because again, if you can already do it, if it's not challenging you, then you've already got enough muscle for the exercise you're doing. So there's no reason for it to adapt. Yep. So you need to push yourself to failure regardless of what the weight is. And it's just like, okay, let's just pick up this boulder and just do bicep curls to failure. And it might be 15 reps. If I pick up a heavier boulder and do bicep curls to failure, it might be a lower number.
I love that. I love that you brought up that point because it's so important, because I'm always reminding my clients that your muscles have no idea what numbers you're choosing on there. It just knows, am I being challenged or not? And every week might be a little bit different. So as long as you feel challenged and you get to the end of those sets and reps and feel like you're exhausted and you failed, that is great. And a lot of our clients as well sometimes get confused of, if you're using a Smith machine, for example, or a different barbell or a machine that you haven't used, they're like, oh, Mel, I'm not sure what the starting weight on that one is. It doesn't matter what the starting weight is. If you consistently use a machine or a dumbbell or a barbell consistently over the weeks, it doesn't matter how you track it. As long as you're consistent with how you track that, then that's all that matters.
Yeah, I love that. Muscles don't have eyes.
Yeah, they don't have eyes. Your body also doesn't know if it's the weekend or not. So stop acting like calories don't count on the weekend. But that's for another podcast. I think we should really talk about the last point here about injuries. I think this is a really important thing.
Yeah. Yep. Actually, I think before we go into that, the other thing is that not every set you do needs to have the same weight either. Mm-hmm. Okay, so sometimes what I'll do is I'll lift heavier in the first set for that 8 to 12 reps. But then maybe for the second set, I only get 8 reps, or maybe I fall below the rep range. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I actually go heavier only for the first set. And then because I fall below the rep range or the target on the other sets, I might lighten the weight just for those ones. But then the other thing is, if you are failing and you, like, let's say if I could get 12 on the first set, but I can't do it on the second and third sets, likely that's an indicator that you aren't resting enough and you need a longer rest timer.
Yeah.
So if you're able to do 12, but then after resting only 60 seconds, let's say, you only get 6 reps in the second set, well, your muscle is capable of doing 12, but then you only recharged and got 6.
Yeah.
So that's your muscles telling you, hey, you didn't give me long enough that I was able to recover to be able to do 12 again, or whatever your first number was that you got. But if you are in a rush, so ideally, you just rest longer so you can do more higher quality sets and lift heavier and stronger. But if you're not able to do that because of time reasons, then you can keep those shorter rest periods. Or sometimes if I'm in a rush, I will only rest 30 seconds between my sets, or do what's called drop sets, where instead of doing rest periods so that I can lift the same weight for 10 reps each time, let's say, instead I'm going to still do 10 reps each time, but the first set's going to be heavy. And because I'm not going to rest enough, I'm only going to do a 20 or 30 second rest. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the weight so that I can have a lighter weight to still be able to fail at 10 reps. Then I'll drop the weight again and then do another 10 reps. But I'm not just dropping the weight to make things easier for myself. I'm dropping the weight because I know that if I didn't drop the weight, after a 10 to 20 second rest, I'm literally only going to do 3 reps.
Yeah, that's
my favorite. So you're dropping the weight and you're just picking the weight so that you always are failing at the rep range number or the rep target number.
Yeah, that's what I like to do is if I only have 20 minutes to train one day, I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't train because I only have 20 minutes. I will reduce the amount of reps I'm doing, which makes me increase the amount of weight I have to use to fail. So for example, if I'm usually doing 10 to 12 reps, I'll be like, okay, today's going to be between a 4 to 8 rep range, and I'm really going to choose a weight that I'm already going to fail in for that rep range, so I don't have to lift that many reps. And I'm also going to reduce the rest time that I do as well to challenge myself, where usually a 10-kilo dumbbell wouldn't challenge me because I take 90 seconds to rest. But because today I'm only resting for 30 seconds, it's going to really challenge me because my muscles haven't had that time to recover going into the next set. So that's also a really good way. And I just love drop sets. You know me. I love it. I love it's my favorite way to train.
Yeah, they're a really efficient way of, a time efficient way of training.
Yeah.
So you can basically cut your workout down from 60-minute workout to a 30-minute workout if you just decide, okay, you know what? Same thing. Again, I can't just go easy.
No.
Because then I'm not challenging the muscles. So what you do instead is you still do the same number of hard sets, but you're just cutting the rest between. But because you're going to be weaker, you just drop the weight. So then you can still hit the rep target. So first set's heavy, second set's medium, third set's lightweight, but all of them are failing within the rep ranges.
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing that all the time. I don't train that way all the time, because if I'm always just trying to push for 6 to 8 reps, shorten my rest break, that's where it can lead to injuries sometimes if you're pushing that a little bit harder, where your body's just not used to that. And I think that will lead and segue well into our next section here.
Yeah. So you said, what about injuries? So the cool thing about strength training is that it's the same whether you're injured or whether you're training for building strength or for building muscle. Okay, so it's actually the exact same process. So for example, earlier this year, or for the last 2 years really, I've had a few shoulder niggles where I'll kind of re-injure it, and that's just because I'm not good at coming back into it and going easy. So I don't do progressive overload, I just overload. Okay.
I know.
So one thing to remember is that progressive overload is just beat yourself by a little bit.
Progressive.
So progressively overload over time.
But
so
Janosch
just do
is
a
just
rep
like,
or two.
I get rid of the progressive.
Right?
Here.
Yeah,
just
where I won't
overload.
train for a while and then I'll instantly come back and just go straight to my old weights.
Most people do that though.
Yeah.
Most people are like, well, I used to lift this, so I'll just go straight into this. And that's why it leads to, injury, because it's not because the muscle may not be able to lift it, but because your connective tissue and everything isn't used to lifting that weight for a while, that's when it leads to injury.
Yeah. Like the cool thing about the body, right, is you have muscle memory. A lot of people know this, that if you've gotten to a certain strength before or you've built to a certain muscle mass before, you can get back to it very quickly and your muscle remembers, the muscle fibers remember how strong you were and they can get back to that strength very quickly, or sometimes you don't even lose that strength at all.
Yeah.
Which is amazing when you go on a holiday or have time off. The problem is that your connective tissue, so you have the muscle, but where the muscle is connected to the bone through your ligaments and your tendons, so tendons connect the muscle to the bone, those don't have as much muscle memory or tendon memory. So while your muscles retain the strength and they can build back to your old strength previously very quickly, your tendons can't as well.
Yeah, they're like, help, we haven't done this for a while.
So you need to give your tendons time by starting back at a lighter weight or not challenging yourself to failure to start with and just progressively overloading over time by adding a few reps here or there. And then when you're at the top of the rep ranges or above the rep target you're aiming for, increasing the weight, but only by 2.5 to 5 kilos each week. Don't go, all right, yep, I just did 20 kilo shoulder press. Let me now go for 50.
Yeah.
Like do 20 one week, next week do 25 and incrementally increase.
Well, this is why I remind my clients always is to look at your strength training journey as a lifelong journey instead of a 6-week journey. This is where people get injured because they're like, okay, week 1, I'm going to start here, but by week 6, I'm going to be lifting 50 kilos heavier. I'm like, look, that's a great goal to have. But the reason that we hardly, like I say, yes, your shoulder injury has come from previous things, but we hardly get injured because we literally progressive overload so small each week. But because we're so consistent, we don't have to worry about trying to rush this strength and rush this growth of our muscles. So like, for example, some exercises, I'm only progressing by like 2.5 or even sometimes 1 kilo or 0.5 kilos every single week. But even the smallest increase in weight reps, whatever it is, even just by increasing 1 rep, that is progressive overload every week. And I'm not focusing on going, okay, I'm going to lift 10 kilos heavier this week. I'm just going to progress.
Yeah. People forget the progressive part of progressive overload because they're all in. They're like, but I've decided to achieve my goals, so I'm going to just overload.
Yeah, and they go too hard and then they can't walk and then they get injured. They go, oh, well, this journey is not for me. Yeah. Where also, even if you are injured right now watching this and you have been injured in the past, remember that even if you've injured one muscle area, there are many other muscles you can still train. So like, for example, I have a client who's injured her neck right now. We're still training lower body. We've made some changes to her program, and that's why it's good to have a coach to change things around if needed. But we just have to focus on, okay, your capacity used to be up here for this muscle. It's now down to 10%, and we have to start back down here and progress it back up again.
Yeah. And so that brings it back to a great point. So if you are injured, like I was saying, the progression scheme doesn't really change. But what changes now is that it's no longer the rep range based on your strength, but it's now based on your injury tolerance or your pain level, pain threshold. So if I'm going to my shoulder, which by the way, it wasn't injured in the gym, it was from judo getting smashed and thrown into the floor, tearing my AC joint.
You did that.
Yes. Well, somebody else threw me, but that's okay. So if I go into my overhead press and I'm doing a shoulder press, it hurts when I'm doing 50 kilos. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that you actually have a tolerance level that's okay. So sometimes people are like, oh no, it hurts every time I use my shoulder. It's like, cool, but instead of just avoiding it and not training it because it's only going to get weaker and more detrained, instead, okay, what if I did, instead of 50 kilo shoulder press, is 40 okay? Nope, I still feel some pain.
Yep.
30 okay.
Find that capacity. 25.
And when I did 25, I'm like, oh, actually, when I do a 25 kilo overhead press, I can actually do 10 to 15 reps with no pain. So then the next week, I then do a little bit heavier and I did 30 kilos, but I just did 10 reps. And then the next week I kept 30 kilos, but then I did 12 reps. Then I did 15 reps. Then I increased the weight. So you can see it's actually doing the exact same process. It's still following a rep range, but you're now not doing it based on your strength. Like I can just go and do 50, but then it hurts my shoulder. So I'm not limiting myself based on my strength anymore. Now it's more about the pain tolerance of my injured area and how it tolerates the exercise you're doing. So if you have some sort of injury, same thing with knees. A lot of my clients come in, they've got knee pain, and then through doing and targeting the exercises to the knees, we're able to strengthen them up and build them up. But we don't start them with what's painful. It's like, okay, let's say doing squats is painful for your knees. Well, can you do a lighter version of a squat?
Yeah.
Right? And you just start with a level that you can tolerate. Now, the tricky thing is that it's not just about the pain during the workout. When you're doing this, if you are training with an injury, first thing you want to do is find the weights that you can train with that your body part tolerates. That's the first thing. But now you want to make sure that you have pain-free, or at least for me, it's not pain-free, but it's at least, if it's a out of 10 scale of pain, a 3 out of 10 pain or less is okay to train with if it's just uncomfortable. So you want to find the weight that's a 3 out of 10 pain or less with a number of reps. Again, if 10 reps is sore, can you do 6 reps? So 6 reps okay? Cool. Start with 6. Next week try 8. Next week try 10, and then build up progressively. But now when you're looking at the areas of pain, is it a 3 out of 10 pain or less during the workout, within 24 hours of finishing the workout, and within 48 hours of finishing? So sometimes the workout's fine. You're like, oh no, the shoulder felt fine. But then the next day, within 24 hours, you're like, oh, it's now really sore. It's flared up. Then that means that even though during the workout it felt fine, you went a little bit too hard with it, with whatever you did, because the next day you had the flare up. Mm-hmm. So then you might want to adjust the next session to either be slightly lighter weights or go for slightly less reps to start with.
Yeah, well, I think it's good for people to learn this. When I know a lot of people, when they get injuries, you think, okay, I've got to stop now. I just won't use that muscle group. Where realistically, like you said, it's about finding that capacity where you can lift a certain load on that muscle. Obviously making sure technique is proper and not getting that day after, 2 day after kind of niggles and pains after. It's just about finding that capacity and still training it, because strength training is the best thing for injuries. And yeah, it's just about making sure that you still progress. Otherwise, you're completely not training a muscle group for a certain amount of weeks and you come back even weaker than before. Yeah. And then you can build up kind of a hesitation in your mind as well with that muscle group, going, oh, I'm too scared to do lunges now because of my knee, for example. I know for myself, when we were training for our marathon, I had a really bad knee injury that I thought was going to take me out. And I was going from running 20 Ks to my physio telling me that I could only run 500 meters. And I was like, what am I going to do? Easily my mindset was like, yeah, let's just not do this anymore. But I had to push through and go, okay, my capacity is now back to level 1. And to get back to 42 kilometers for this marathon, I need to slowly run 500 meters every few days. And then I moved to 750 meters. And then I moved to 1 kilometer without knee pain. And I would always let my physio know, okay, when did I feel knee pain? And eventually we ran the marathon. But if I just completely stopped and didn't train, didn't do my strength training, didn't do my rehab, then I never would have got to that point.
Yeah. And all rehab is it's just targeting the muscle.
Yeah.
Like, so it's finding what the injured muscle is, finding what the deficits are. So what are the muscles that need to be targeted? And then it's giving specific exercises to target those muscles at low levels to start with, and then progressively overloading over time.
Yeah.
So if you notice when you go to a physio, same thing. They're going to give you 10 reps of something to start with. Then the next week they might be like, all right, now you can do 15 reps of this exercise.
Yeah.
Now they might give you a heavier band or more resistance, or they might change the exercise to make it more difficult. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you don't always need to go back to all those basic kind of exercises. Sometimes you can just lighten the load, find the weight that you can tolerate, and rebuild from there, depending on what your injuries are. But if you do have an injury, I would recommend go see a physio, go see an exercise physiologist to start with, because you can't do this yourself. You don't know what you need to do. And it is very easy when you're relying on it yourself to just go into avoidance and avoid it altogether.
Oh yeah, no one wants an injury. And I know a lot of injuries don't just come from going too hard too quickly. A lot of the time they come from bad technique. So make sure you do check in with a physio if you are feeling some niggles after a long period of time. But a lot of the time it isn't because you haven't gone that intense. It's just because you maybe just be lifting incorrectly. So if you do have a coach, make sure you check in with them, because we could be ego lifting and just increasing our weights every week, but you're increasing your weights with improper technique. And that's what could be placing a lot of stress on particular muscles, connective tissue, tendons, etc. So really important to focus on that as well.
Yeah. But main moral of the story, because I know that a lot of people won't go see a physio, is if you are feeling pain with any exercise, first thing is just find the level that you can do without the pain.
Yeah.
And then progressively overload from that level by just progressively overloading it. Like we were saying, increase reps first. Once you get to the top of a rep range, then increase the weight, not by 10, 20 or 30 kilos, just by 1 or 2 kilos at a time.
Yeah. Well, this was a great episode. Do you have any more points, Janos?
No, that's
Perfect. I thought I'd wrap up by saying this is our 10th episode. And we are so proud and so excited that we're on double digits right now. We love all your support. I know I say this every week, but we appreciate every comment, every reshare, every follow, every rating, anything that you're doing to support us, we appreciate. And you have no idea how excited we get when we get to see them. So thank you so much. And we hope you
go out and live
the Pro Body lifestyle.